Talk loneliness, Welly. Living with loneliness. That's what we're talking about this morning. And I feel like there's a lot of people walking around lonely, but not really aware, because you're surrounded by people. But that doesn't make you not lonely, right?
Yeah. It's actually, I think many people are afraid of their own company. And so they impose or look for ways to fill up time so that they cannot face themselves, and that's a problem. And you need to actually begin to address it early. It gets harder with more success. It gets harder with more notoriety. It gets harder with more demands on you. And so the earlier you detect it, the better, because we are starting to see the crumbling of people whom we thought are luminaries and light givers and caregivers. You're starting to see we are hearing one has committed suicide, another one is in some addiction because they're trying to fight their own company. And that for me is actually what loneliness is, being unable to cope with your own company.
Yeah, so people just kind of stay busy. Just finding things to
Finding
do and places to go and people to meet,
Yes.
because you can't just sit alone by yourself. Well, some people feel like it might be safer to be lonely than to be hurt. That could be also a deterrent of someone not really wanting to make strong connections, because you're saying, I might get hurt, I've gotten hurt in the past, so let me just keep my distance.
I think it's the other way around. I think it's because you are already hurting. And it's like trying to make a man who is limping to carry weight. They can't, because the limp is already present. The limp has already provided for them a fracture. And for me, I would say that loneliness comes from two places. Either they need to be understood or they need to be loved. When that imbalance is there, you either feel you are surrounded by people who don't understand you. Like, a lady never wastes her red, so I hope your day is not, we need to understand why you are, but they need to be understood. So some people struggle so much. Either you've gotten a new job and yet you're not generous, and why are you not doing this, and why are you not doing this, and why so you try to get people to understand where you are and why you are the way you are. And because you have been worn out trying to make yourself understood by the people whom you think they should understand you. Maybe you've just found Jesus and you've started walking in the ways of the Lord, and your old folks and your old crew is wondering, hey, what's up with you, man? What's up with you? And so they isolate, they make jokes about it, and then you begin to feel like you're supposed to be my friend. And so that can create room for loneliness. Or on the other side is the need to be loved. And this comes from authority figures. You're fighting for the affection of somebody. And this person is either too busy or does not notice that you're fighting for their attention. It takes an authority to be absent for you to be lonely. Somebody must matter for you to be lonely. It doesn't matter what any stranger thinks about me. I can be loved by everybody, but there's this one person or two people, this person who matters so much in my life that their love fills the void in my soul. And so striving for their love, and this is what creates that dangerous gap, because you can fight for the love of an abuser, or you can fight for the love of somebody who exactly knows what they're doing, so they keep drawing you into that dark space until you end up becoming their property and you lose your individuality. So it's that gap, that's where loneliness thrives. It's either you're striving so much to be loved or you're striving so much to be understood, and because you're not finding people willing enough to understand you, or somebody who feels you're valuable enough to commit their time to show that they love you. And that is what creates that sense of loneliness, and you start thinking.
That's a very dangerous place to be that reliant on someone's affection or attention.
And it's actually dangerous for, because I work with two sets of people. I work with people whom success is what we call public people. Artists, what and what. And you'll see it's like you're obsessed with number. I have 105,000, she has 103,000, but all these are strangers. And when they go through the comment section and they find oh, these people, they don't know what, you have no right, your fans don't understand you, but they love you. And so your family is struggling to understand you. Why do you behave the way you behave? And your fans on the other side, they love you so much. And so you find that they find themselves in a place where everything they do it for the numbers. I'm doing it for the fans. And then you start calling them fam. They're not your family. They just love one aspect about you. They don't love you in totality. And then so you find yourself suspended in that tension between family and fans on this side are thinking, hey, we love everything about you. We love how you throw wild parties. We love how you go wild and crazy. And so you begin to make yourself what that your fans love. And then you go back home and you discover, but that's not me. That's what they love. And that's the most dangerous thing about loneliness, is that you are eager to make yourself something that somebody loves, not exactly what you love. And that's dangerous. On the other side, I work with executives and corporates. These are people who have now shielded themselves with money and occupation and responsibility. Them on the other side is the feeling of power. They feel like, I have too much responsibility, I can't be human. And the feeling that I can't be human, that is, I cannot allow myself to make mistakes, I cannot allow myself to be stupid, I cannot allow myself. So they enter into everything with the feeling that people need to understand who I am. So that imposition on people, it makes you blind to your need to learn, to your need to be loved. And so you find that as people grow up in rank, they begin to find that they are so eager to make people to understand, I'm the boss, I'm the guy with the gun and the bullets. And slowly by slowly, when they go back home, they begin to say, I have become the boss I hated, or I have become exactly what I said I won't become, simply because I have pulled myself away into my occupation and forgotten that I am still a functioning human soul that requires attention, that requires affection, that requires relation. And slowly by slowly, my occupation has so much collapsed these other things, and I'm now just CEO, doctor, bishop, apostle, sheikh. I'm this thing, mheshimiwa. And that need of everybody around you needs you, but you don't know whom you need. And that's why people in that category, everybody is looking for them for answers, but they never know whom to look for answers. So they get themselves suffering private depression. They get themselves suffering private anxiety. Every day they wake up like an actor. I have to be strong, I have to be smart, I've got to be this. But you don't feel like being that, and you don't find the need of looking for somebody and saying, hey, I want to walk through the man journey with you. I want to walk through just the journey of being a man with you, that sometimes I can process my fears with you, and I can still go out there and do my work and still come back and process life with you. So that is what creates the environment for loneliness. And by the time we discover that it is loneliness is when now you begin to be a dependent on antidepressants. You can't sleep without a shot, you can't sleep without a pill, you can't sleep without a woman, you can't sleep without, you now need feelers to do the natural. The body is made to sleep. It is actually 90% of our brain, we will never use it because it's sleeping. It's in a sleep mode. But you struggle with getting yourself in even getting those human simple things like getting to sleep. And that happens so much in the executives. They wonder, I can't sleep, man, I can't sleep. There's just too much. But it's a mode that you've gotten yourself into, and you begin to be lonely at that level.
Yeah. I like the fact that you brought up the social media aspect. I was going to bring that up as well, because, I mean, social media has a way of making us feel like everyone is living their best life, you know, and everyone has all these awesome things going on. So it becomes like that sort of like competition, and you can become so engrossed in that you forget to take care of yourself. You forget what me time feels like, because you're so focused, like you're saying, on your audience and on, you know, creating this sort of image.
Yeah. It's a social identity which actually lies to us that that's our true selves. The worst thing about social media, especially now, is that long time ago you'd take a picture, take it to Jaramogi Studios. They tell you come back after 4 days. You go pick it. Out of 36, 4 were burnt, 3 were good, 4, and you could do nothing about it.
Yeah.
But now I can take a picture, edit it, make it black and white, add more green, take out red in microseconds and put it out there.
Yeah.
And immediately it's out there. People say it's perfect. And so the need, the illusion of perfection has been brought to the second, that I can make something perfect in seconds. And so that makes us to become these creatures that want to fit a social image of perfection, but it blocks us from what I call maturity, because maturity takes time, maturity takes discipline, maturity takes relationship. It's an intense process. But this is soft, it's something that has got no originality, but everything has been made to fit an audience, but does not fit you. And it's one of the ways that I am afraid of the kind of children that we are going to raise in the next 15 years, because it's going to be a mess. They are going to cry over things that we never thought mattered, because we have created for them that void, that why did you take a picture and only 15 people liked it? Now it's not about not just the picture, it's even the number of people who liked that picture. Why did they only like 15 of them? And you shared, you sponsored, you did everything, and you went to the comment section and only 3 people. Those are the places we are building our value system and the value system for our individuality from, which is very fluid and very flaky, and it's going to mess us up.
Yeah. Talk to us about the value of being connected just as humans, of having that sort of connection. And I know there are people who are watching and maybe they're saying, well, I'm an introvert, I just, I like spending time by myself, but there is actual value in being connected to other people.
Well, I believe every human soul has a void, and that void has been left there so that you can have need for relationship. If that void was not there, we would not need relationship. Now, without forming the genuine necessary connections, what is going to happen is that that void is going to be bigger and grow wider. And as you try to suffocate it with things instead of people and relationship, soon and very soon you'll begin to discover that these things don't communicate. They don't, by communicate is that they don't relate. Their value depreciates with time. They don't mourn. They don't grieve. I've never seen my cup mourn over, we bought 6 sets and 2 broke, and the 4 were crying over the other 2 that broke. They don't mourn. They don't grieve. They have got no emotional involvement in our life. And so it is important for us to know that one of the ways that you can overcome that sense of loneliness is intentionally forming a community. And that community must be formed around a value system. And the value system cannot be, we are the party girls, or we are the happening boys, or sijui, we are Team Mafisi. It cannot be formed around such voids, because those are symbols of voids. It has got to be formed around a bigger picture. And this big picture is what brings people together and gives them a value over a period of time. And so I would always urge, and I always urge people, that what man can do can be undone by another man. A bad lover can be, the damage of a bad lover can be corrected by a good lover. Staying away from love so that you don't find a bad lover. Love is a human need. It's like staying away from water just because you don't have a cup. Water is a human need. You have to find a way, whether it's going to be taking it through your hands or putting your mouth in a hose pipe or whatever. You have got to find a way, because water is a human need. So what a bad lover has done, there is definitely a good lover who can come in and make it right. What a bad teacher has done, there's definitely a good teacher can come and do it. What a bad boss has done, there's definitely a good boss can come in and do it. But building shelters around one bad eventually isolates us further and breeds the environment for loneliness.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's
why some of you are not going to church, because you are angry at that pastor who had you 10 years ago.
Yeah, that can't be fixed. No, but speaking of things that have happened in the past, it could be that some people are living it's still in the past. Like your nostalgia is the point that you're not looking at your present life, you're not looking at what the future might look like, you're just stuck on things of good back then. And that can create loneliness as well. How do you get out of that?
I've always found this, that thoughts and experiences, they are magnets. If I begin to think about something, it's like I begin to resonate with people who think the same way about that thing. And we magnetize one another.
So if I want to make money,
you begin to think about
I should just hang out with rich people.
Just think about it first. You begin to create a thinking system about money. You need to say, hey, I need to come out of this cycle of hustling. I need to come out of this poverty cycle. And if you begin to think about it, you'll begin to run into Weliodendos, you'll begin to run into this. Now, if you begin to think about crazy things, you'll begin to find that you will magnetize. Even in any organization, you'll always find that you are hired differently on different days, but gossipers find one another. They just, I don't know how, they'll send messages and find one another. There are those who feel like, I don't know, the divas. They always have a way of finding one another. I don't know how they connect, how they communicate, but they find one another. That's the same thing about dealing with the previous hurts or internal damages. When you begin to brood and nurture pain, slowly by slowly, you will find people who are brooding and nurturing pain. And they'll begin to tell you, by the way, it's true. Oh, these men are dogs. You know me. And they'll be talking and they'll be rehearsing it. And another one will come and join the group. And you'll wonder, by the way, all of us here, we cannot all be wrong. It cannot be all of us this way. And then there's another circle across the table, which are saying, man, my life took a different turn when this nigger walked into my life. And you wonder, what's the experience? Or somebody say, these girls, they're just out here to use you. They just want this and this. Because you are breeding the pain, and thoughts become magnets, and they begin to magnetize. And once a community, because community is the concrete that consolidates the thoughts that you have. So once you begin to magnetize people of the same sort, you are reinforcing that in your own life. You should begin by, first of all, challenging the thought. I am not what happened to me. I am not what happened to me. It may have happened to me, but I am not it. So it should not define who I am. What happened to me and who I am are two different experiences. I can go and have a bad relationship, and I can be a good girl. I can have a bad relationship and be a good man. And being a good man has nothing to do with me finding a good woman. It has everything to do with what was I intentionally applying myself towards. So if I want to overcome such kinds of prehistoric events that have happened, I have to commit myself to, first of all, challenging the thought, how have I allowed the previous experience to define who I am? Because everything begins with a thought, and for it to end, it must be countered by a new set of thinking. And so that thinking will begin to magnetize the right kind of people who will begin to move you in the right kind of direction. And do you know, loneliness by itself is actually a thinking system. It's not a social system. It's a thinking system. There are people who feel neglected. There are people who feel rejected. There are people who feel unloved. And when they're talking about being unloved, you go into their room, they have got cards all over written about, I miss you, I love you, you mean the world to me. You go into the other room, there are flowers there that you can actually keep a honeycomb there, because bees can come in there and just have a blast. You go, they have everything on the outside, but that thinking on the inside, all these things never challenges the thought. And if you never challenge the thought, nothing on the outside can ever be able to make it work. So it has to be, how did I begin to think about this?
Yeah. Could be someone who just doesn't like spending time with themselves, thinking like, if I'm just by myself in my house, what am I going to do? I live alone. You know, what do you expect me to fill that time up with?
Well, it begins with how you plan your day. You have to intentionally embrace boredom. You have to. You have to boredom has bequeathed the world more genius than busyness. It was on a day that Isaac Newton was bored, sleeping under a tree, that an apple fell on him, and the journey of discovering the laws of motion began.
Wow.
That is the power of boredom. If he was too busy, apples had always been falling. Even my great-grandfather, when it fell on, maybe probably was somewhere in the field or something. But when the mind is overly preoccupied, it doesn't pick out the details that can define it and refine it. Slowly by slowly, you must make your mind to embrace that I am not going to crowd you. You have got to think without the crutches of that group, of that movie, of that thing. You've got to embrace boredom. You've got to sit down and yawn again and sit down and yawn. You've got to see Kenya Power not returning your electricity and sit in the house and say,
That's
I'll
the
stop.
worst. I don't know what to do with myself.
You have to mourn with others. You have to go on FB. But you have to embrace boredom. There is nothing wrong, because when you begin to do that, your mind will begin to create a way of now building in that time you are alone. The reason why you feel lonely is because you don't know how to build without noise. But when you begin to embrace that moment of feeling bored or alone, you'll begin to start finding a structured way of building, a structured way of designing solutions, a structured way of looking at your own life. Probably you look at your closet and discover, by the way, I think it's too old. I've never even noticed it. The clothes I have here that I've not worn in the last 7 months. But because you're ever busy, or probably you'll notice you've not bought yourself a new cloth for the last 7 months. You've just been rewinding, color coding, mix and matching, and all that. You'll begin to notice the details, because that's what people who fear being lonely are. They fear that moment of being bored. So it starts by being bored, and then in that boredom, your mind will begin to design some solutions that will keep you engaged.
Find your genius in boredom.